Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining, and sorry for running a few minutes late. We had some technical difficulties on our end, but we got all those things squared away and taken care of. So we'll jump in and get started. Just a few things before we go into the slides. We are recording this today, and we will be posting it on SlideShare and sending it out once that's all prepared. We'll also have time for a Q&A session at the end, so just send your questions in and we'll get them answered for you. All right, so without further ado, moving on. So just some housekeeping things here. Talk about our agenda. We'll be talking with Michael from Bluestem Brands. He's a QA engineer over at Bluestem Brands. We're going to be talking about kind of how they prepared for their holiday testing and kind of what they think about. So going over their considerations for testing, what to test, why they moved to K6 in version 4.0, then of course the audience Q&A. To introduce myself for everyone that doesn't know me on the call, I am Mark Meyer. I'm the team lead of the client success team here at Load Impact. And to introduce Michael, he is a customer of ours and someone I chat with on a fairly regular basis. Michael, I don't know if you want to add a few things about yourself before we jump in.
Sure. Hello, my name is Michael Miranda. I'm a QA engineer at Bluestem Brands. My role here involves developing and running load tests and also developing back-end and front-end tests as well. Fun fact about me is I'm a Marine Corps veteran and I served 2 tours in Afghanistan.
Very cool. So thank you, Michael. So I'll jump in before handing it off to you. A little bit about Bluestem Brands. They're a large e-commerce company. They have quite a few retail brands, 13 of them. They do quite a bit of annual revenue, $1.8 billion, and they get over 160 million website visitors a year. So needless to say, performance testing and making sure all their customers have a pleasant and easy experience on their sites is pretty important to them. Moving on, Michael, why don't I hand this off to you now and tell us about the kind of all your thoughts on what you're testing, how you came up with what you wanted to test, and how you got to reach your goals.
All right, so as the slide says, considerations for our testing goals. At Bluestem Brands, we want to be able to at least handle holiday load, but just being able to handle holiday load isn't good enough. And for those of you that don't know what holiday is, it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday for us. But basically, we want to handle at least 2 times our expected volume, projected volume for the holiday season. I try to test for at least 2 times, but if not 3 times or more. And how we got to this pattern, first off with starting with K6 is we started off with small initial load tests to validate the scripts, of course. And then we also analyzed our throughput that we were generating, or requests per minute per virtual user. And through many, many load tests, we got an understanding of what our expected throughput is and what our exponential decay of our site was due to throughput. All right, so next slide. Okay, so tools that we use for determining our predicted load, one of them was Adobe Analytics data. I'm not on the analytics team, so I can't really talk about how it's actually made prediction, but they use Akamai, Adobe Analytics to get that number, that predicted volume, and Adobe Analytics. We also use New Relic and Datadog and Sumo Logic to analyze or monitor our sites as well, so I can use that data from them to not only create a realistic load test, but to monitor our site's health. So other considerations for third parties, uh, we have we needed to address our third parties because some of them were slow, but typically you don't want to be load testing third parties without consent, but we did it anyways on some parts because they were slow. And yes, we got a lot of nasty grams from them, but eventually they addressed the issue and resolved it because it was very negatively impacting our throughput and our site stability. Um, the other note on high usage endpoints, as I mentioned earlier, we use New Relic and Datadog to find what endpoints our users are using from our brands and try to include those endpoints in our load test.
And Michael, one thing I guess I want to add here, just from where I sit, I guess as it relates to the previous slide, the Adobe Analytics and Akamai, that kind of gave you a peak level of the number of virtual users you were looking to test at. But I guess New Relic and Datadog was more important for determining what the most important endpoints are, or user flows that you would be testing, and could give you the highest impact, or at least were the most important to make sure we're reliable for your customers.
Correct. We want to make realistic load tests, and using the actual analytical data that we gather, it actually highly impacts our site. So if we aren't doing what our customers are doing, then it's not that good of a load test. So.
Very cool.
Okay, determining what to test. The business wanted to make sure that we had certain critical flows that our users go through as a base, such as checkout, search, my account, product pages, and the credit app. Things that I needed to consider when I was making these scripts, or these flows, I should say. We shouldn't be doing something simple, just like, say, the checkout flow should just be add an item to call, or add an item to cart, and then log in and then go to checkout. If that was our flow, that wouldn't be very true to what our customers do. As an example, and this is just hypothetical, but what do customers normally do? They may log in, they may browse and search for a while, they might add an item to cart, let's say a pair of pants. They might go shopping around for some other pair of pants and decide, hey, I don't want that pair of pants and I'm going to remove it. And they might go to my account, whatever, and then eventually land in checkout. And maybe they'll back out of checkout and do some other shopping. So we had to try to think outside the box rather than just doing exactly what the business said to do. Otherwise, it's, again, not a realistic load test. And to caveat back to the previous slide, using New Relic and Datadog, adding in those high usage endpoints into these critical flows. And no, we don't submit credit apps just for those that use our brands. We just hit the credit app index, so we're not using anybody's social security numbers or anything like that. So.
I guess that ties back to the third parties where, I mean, I know from a best practice on our side, we suggest that you remove third-party requests from your script for, well, typically they don't want to be involved in tests unless you have permission to test those things, which I guess you got or maybe figured out after you were testing it, and that just kind of ties into that.
Yeah, I don't suggest ever load testing against third parties, especially not willingly, but the business told me to do it, and result was a positive result. So let's see. So why we moved to K6 and load impact 4.0? Let's see, I'm basically just going to be reading this slide to be completely honest, but we looked into low-cost open source framework. We were using SOSTA, and that was way too expensive. We wanted something that was open source so that we could use against our warm-up scripts for our lower environments and even our production environments. The what that allows us is to get rid of the slowness that you typically get when you release a build to the wild. Typically, when you're just spinning up the application or the web app, it's cold and it's slow. And we don't want our customers to experience that, because if a customer waits for maybe more than 10 seconds, they will go somewhere else. So that's not ideal. So we also used Lua, or Load and Pack version 3.0, for a while. And it was great, but it wasn't very modular in its design. So, and as a 13 brand website, we wanted to be able to use the same URL pattern, but change the base URL to something else, to a different brand, and have modular data for respective products and whatnot and accounts. So it was a very, very nice transition when we were able to join the Load and Pack 4.0.
Yeah, I guess I remember when you guys first came to us, however long ago that was, and we showed you 3.0, and I just remember the excitement when we finally invited, or once we got 4.0 to a beta release and invited you guys to join. I mean, just looking at your next slide and calling back to using the environment variables, it's hard to maintain a lot of different scripts when there's so many brands or so many environments you need to test against. And I think that's just a thing I want to call out specifically with 4.0, the flexibility it gives there.
Yep, absolutely. I know you had a question in regards to creating reports that we went through on our thing. Do you want me to spew that out, or?
No, well, I guess we'll get to that at the end.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No worries.
So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it on that then. So.
Well, yeah, I guess the slide 10 here, your outcomes. So I guess just summarize. So what have you gotten out of all this?
Sorry, I thought that was the last slide. So with the outcomes that we've been able to achieve using Load and Pack version 4.0, is we've been able to create realistic customer loads, identify website weaknesses, increase our site stability significantly to survive holiday traffic and then some, with no downtime. Keyword, no downtime. Whereas typically before we were using this, we'd have downtimes of like 2 hours and 3 hours, which is absolutely unacceptable during holiday load. We were able to include load tests as part of our build pipeline so that we would have our web apps warm and ready to go for our customers, and also warm up our lower environments as well for testing purposes. And we were able to validate our security systems that we use to make sure that the rules in place work properly, as expected.
Very cool. And so before I fully take over here, or I guess I'll take over from here, and I guess I just want to be transparent and share with everyone. Part of our technical difficulty was Michael was having an issue with connecting to GoToWebinar. So if it sounds like he's talking and I'm controlling the screen, well, that's what's happening. So I just wanted to share that. It's almost kind of funny. But anyway, so to summarize some things from what Michael said, and I want to talk about the differences between Load and Pack 4.0 and 3.0. So many of our users are most familiar with Load and Pack 3.0, which is our web-based application. Scripting is done in Lua. It's a very easy to use tool built completely in the web. From having that for years and having it available, talking to our users and customers, we learned a lot of things from it, and that inspired a lot of what we've done in Load and Pack 4.0. So we wanted to build an open source tool to support that community. We wanted to utilize a more familiar scripting language, which is JavaScript in 4.0. And we wanted to give more power and flexibility to the people using our tool. So making it a command line tool Some things such as what Michael mentioned, they write one batch of test scripts and they just change the environments that they test against. In their case, it's brands, but I've worked with other users where they're testing a different staging or pre-production environments or eventually even production environments. So Load Impact 4.0 and K6 lets them get testing earlier in the development process and kind of they can use it's flexible enough that they can use it kind of as whatever they're developing or building gets closer to production. Another thing to call out with Load Impact 4.0 is the modularity of the scripts. So you can include scripts within other scripts, build out custom libraries to share with your team. Again, a feature it's more built around people that need to test continuously and on a regular basis. That all said, wanted to move to a Q&A and invite everyone to ask us some questions, either about kind of the methodology that Michael went through and his testing and determining what to test and how to do those different things, or even high level about Load Impact and what we offer. While we give you a second to come up with those questions and send them in, I did want to just remind everyone, if you wanted to check out our project site for K6, that's available at k6.io. K6 related documentation is available at docs.k6.io. And of course, we have our Load Impact specific documentation within our knowledge base at support.loadimpact.com. And of course, if there's ever any questions about usage or tool in general, we're happy to answer them for you either through the email noted or the live chat on our website. And then finally, if you haven't started a trial of Load Impact 4.0, we do invite you to do that. Michael, I did have one question for you. So we were chatting a little bit about it the other day. What do you do with all these load tests after you're done? I think you mentioned something interesting that you store it and kind of use it back for reference. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, and just want to point out that yes, I can't see the questions that are coming in because I can't see the screen. So if any questions come towards me, I won't be able to see them. So you'll have to tell them to me.
That's fine.
Okay, but to answer your question, as far as what I do with the load test after I'm done, we create reports and we use a tool called Jira and Confluence. And we basically record all the results from not only Load Impact's results page, but we also get all the metrics and data from New Relic, Sumo Logic, and Datadog. And we compile these into a daily report, or I would say a daily report when we run, and we analyze the data. What we look for is, or things that we keep note of, is our throughput, meaning RPM, our peak RPM, and the corresponding response times, and our overall average response time during the load test. Something that we also take note of is after the test, do we recover or do we still have really high response times? Does it go back to normal? Which is something we have to check for. We also check for memory leaks in any of our microservices or any of our servers or high memory usage. So basically, in a nutshell, if we have an issue, we have a historical document to say what the issue was, what we did to attempt to address the issue, and if it resolved the issue or not, so that we have like historical data to say how we address these issues. I can give an example for today. If you're a real world example, we use Oracle. Right now we're trying to migrate from it. And the past 2 days we've been having issues that requests are still going to our Oracle servers, which it shouldn't be. But we've been analyzing the data and trying to find out why certain endpoints are making these requests to Oracle when it really shouldn't be. But we basically are keeping track of it and keeping record of how we're attempting to fix it, and then hopefully have a resolution. But we typically try to apply a fix today and then try testing again tomorrow to validate that the change fixed that issue.
Very cool. And I guess just that's interesting. So some of your tests are giving you validation of whether I guess changes you're making are hitting something you're trying to migrate away from.
Yes.
Very interesting. It's one of the almost a fringe thing that is very indirect with load testing, but interesting. I haven't heard that before. We got a question here from someone. Can you show us an example of test script for a complex scenario? Now, I know, Michael, you can't show anything, but you have some sensitive endpoints, and we wouldn't want to share that with the world. But I think I may have a script I can bring up and maybe talk through a little bit. So let me stop sharing and grab that real quick. All right, I am sharing my screen again. Michael, I know you can't see this, but everyone else can. And I guess I hope this answers the question a bit. It's not the most complex script, but it does go through a few things. So I guess in this case here, this is just a test against a demo site we have. And I guess what I want to call out specifically, and maybe related to what Michael was mentioning, was in the script, I do pass an environment variable to when I execute it, or I can rather. And I look to see if that environment variable is present, and I make a request to a certain URL if it is, and if not, I make a request to a different URL. So if I can kind of relate that to what Michael was doing with testing different brands, again, he's passing an environment variable to change the domain with what he's testing. I'm doing it here to trigger this URL alert in my script for demonstration purpose, but the concept is similar. As we go through this script here, I'm doing different things. I'm checking, or I'm running checks against some of my requests that I'm making, see if certain status codes are being returned, recording failure rates for those things, and then continuing on to make more requests. I don't want to go too deeply into this. We have a version of this demo script available in our knowledge base, but I guess just wanted to call out and show a little bit of what a more complex script could look like. So I hope this is helpful for the person that asked. All right. Don't think we're getting any other questions. So I will hop back to our slide and give everyone one last chance. Can it be used easily to test web services? Yes, you can use Load Impact 4.0 or 3.0 even to test anything transmitted over HTTP. Load Impact 4.0 can also test HTTP 2 and WebSockets, and you can generate that load from either your local machine or an environment you control, or our cloud service, and results can show up within our cloud service in both scenarios. All right, I guess that's it with the questions. So not many there. Michael, thank you for joining us today and taking us through kind of your thoughts and methodology on on your testing and what you've done, and giving us some background and insight into what you've learned, and even some of those correlated things that not directly related to load testing, but still you learned from load testing. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to put this slide up on YouTube and get the slide share deck out. We will be sharing that out once it's available. And of course, if anybody has any questions, please reach out to us, let us know. Either reach out to us over email at support@loadimpact.com or use the live chat available within the knowledge base. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.